Okay, my ESC isn't working. No problem. I'm using Vim, so you don't need ESC, I think. Okay, so my name is Drew. I wanted to do a very easy sort of talk today. Just one very simple exercise. We're a lot of programmers in the room. We should be able to do one exercise, right? Not too difficult. So we're going to do it together. We're going to see how a seemingly easy problem is quite hard to get right. And then I would like to try to do the same problem using some ideas and some patterns and some techniques from the functional programming world. I've been doing a fair amount of functional programming, so we can just take a look at that. I haven't really practiced this talk very much. But if there's like some more time, maybe we can just play with ChatGPT or stuff like that. Yeah, it's like, this is how much I prepare for the talk, so don't get too excited. Okay, and one thing which I really wanted to make clear is like, feel free to interrupt at any point. No microphones, it doesn't matter, just yell. Like if there's like, I'm making a typo, or you think we could do this better, I'm very happy to just take it easy, yeah? There's no script apart from this one. So let me do this set, like this sort of like scene, right? First of all, let's generate some random numbers in Ruby and save them to a file, right? I'm going to say store, I'm just going to save them to a number so we can refer to them later. File, write, store, and I'm going to generate 100 random numbers. Map, random, rand 10. And once I've done this, I'm going to just join them with the new line character. Okay? And yeah, that's it. Maybe just in order to keep the exercise meaningful, I'm just going to do it only once. So I'm going to say unless file.exists. As you see, no copilot, nothing. It's all here. No, I love large language models. So, okie dokes. So, once I have this, I'm going to do Ruby script RB. If I look, we have some numbers. If I do head of numbers, ta-da, random numbers. Okay. Let's drink. So, okay, we have these random numbers. What do we want to do with them? As I said, very simple exercise. We're going to create a histogram, right? So for each one of these numbers, I'm going to want to write the index of that number and then as many hashes as the number is, right? So for the first one, we just 0, no hashes. Second one is going to be 1 and 8 hashes, right? So let's do that. So numbers, I'm going to actually read these things. So file read, store. I can now split over the new line characters, yeah? And I can do something a little bit tricky, which is like to create a sort of like I think it's called, give me the right name, someone knows it in the audience. It's like a magic proc. Basically, like you can write a block without actually creating a block. You can just say, I want to map over this function, and you just pass the symbol. Anyways, I've spoken too much. You read the file, split over the new lines, convert them to integers, right? And now once I have that, I can just go over each number. And I'm going to use this each with index. It's like part of the enumerable module. And you will get the value plus the index, which is very convenient because it's exactly what we want to do. So I'm going to get the number, the index. And now for each one of these things, I'm going to say, okay, you can print the index. And then for each one of my numbers, I can just do this. I can say the hash symbol, and I want it to have it repeated a certain number of times. And in Ruby, you can just use the multiplying operator. This is like the beauty of Ruby. Now if I run the script, ta-da! And if I just quickly to see the number, yeah, just to make sure it makes sense, is I have 6 Here, 7, 5. Yeah, it looks about right, yeah? Okay, any questions about this code? Yeah, easy? Okay, just let's make one little change to it, and we can see how much more difficult this exercise gets, yeah? So the one change I'd like to make of this piece of code is I would like to group consecutive rows that have the same number and write a little nice summary, right? So for example, you can see that here on row 93, 94, I have 1. Instead of just showing this thing like this, I would like to show something like this. Dash 94, yeah? And everything else remains unchanged in this exercise, yeah? How would you do it? Think, but in silence. It's like this very old, ancient Chinese proverb. Okay, so I'm sure now you have some ideas, you're starting to talk. As I said, think, but in silence, okay? So we're going to try to just like solve it in a random way. And I think it's just fun to try to do it like in using just imperative code, right? We're going to use these good old variables. We're going to do some pretty nasty stuff, and we're going to see how we can get to a solution to this problem using good old style imperative code, yeah? So what makes it this different and more difficult? It's like suddenly we have introduced some sort of state into this problem, right? Before, we could just consider each row individually and just do stuff, but now we have to delay some actions, right? We have to wait until this group where the same number is not finished, and then we can print, right? So if I was very explicit about it, I would say, okay, I need to keep track of the previous number and not do anything. Then for the current number, if the current is the same as that's JavaScript in my fingers. If current is equal to previous, then I know that the group is continuing, so I'm going to continue and not doing anything at all. If current is different from previous, then I can print a summary of the previous group. Yeah? I think this is more or less like if you're thinking really about what steps we need to do and just try to do them, yeah? Okay, yeah, let's try to do this. I'm going to say, okay, previous number is going to be nil, and then we're going to start going through numbers. We're going to do each with index again. And here we get in the number, the index. First problem, anything? Oh yeah, of course. Like this? Yeah, great. So I think this is the first problem, right? We said, oh, I want to compare the current number with the previous number. First problem, the previous number can be nil. So our thing just starts with if previous number. If it exists, we're going to do stuff. But the first time it is going to be nil, so we have to set it to a proper value, such as the current number, and not do anything, and wait until the next cycle of iteration to actually do something useful, yeah? Okay, now we've done that. The next time we said, okay, if current is equal to previous, we're going to continue, which in the world means like we don't have to do anything. So we actually need to consider something like if num is different from the previous num, then now we can print a summary of the previous group, yeah? So I'm going to write some stuff. I'm going to say here is going to be, oh, what is the previous index? We forgot to keep track of that, right? Because, for example, in the group here, we should have kept track of 93, and we forgot to do that. No problem, we're programmers. Just add a new variable, previous index. So easy, it's like the amazing bit about programming. Just make stuff up, and it just works. And then eventually here, I'm going to say previous index. Here it's index. And now here, oh, okay, finally I have this previous index. And then I'm going to say, okay, now it's going to be index. I'm going to do this thing. And then I'm going to say this hash symbol multiplied by, well, it's previous num, I think, yeah? Okay, let's try to run this. Previous index, yeah, thank you very much. Previous number, it was printing just random stuff. Previous, sorry, where, in which line? Okay, so I forgot to do something else, that if I do this operation where I print, I actually also need to run line 32 and line 33 again. Yeah, because I need to just keep going through in the loop. Okay, ta-da! Something's not right though, yeah? We see 97, 98, 98, 99, off by 1 errors, right? So I will save you the pain. I had to do this myself, so I'll save the pain to you. This is supposed to be index -1. Classic. Who said something? Louder. Last row is missing. You see, we've done this group well. 95, 95 is 0. Then we have 8, 5, 6, 7, and oopsies. The last row is missing. Yeah. Apart from the fact that it's super ugly because we have a group of called 9090, which is, I mean, good for a band, but not much for our code. So here we actually have to do some pretty nasty stuff again. We have to say if previous index is equals index -1, yeah? So basically, if just the group is only made of 1, yeah? Then we're going to print something slightly different. I'm going to use the amazing powers of autocomplete. And this is supposed to be previous index multiplied by previous num, else. Okay. This looks nice, yeah? But there's still this problem. We forgot last bit. Why? Because in the cycle, we always print the previous group, right? So when we get to the end, we still had this data inside these temporary variables, and we forgot to print them. Classic. So I'm going to do that. I think it should be something like this. Let's see. I could add a fake number. I could. So, okay, I've done this, right? This is 99, and now if I check the last numbers, it's 576. Where's the bug? Louder. Very good. So number 16, if I go and add the last row, which is the same, 2 6s, I always run the wrong command. Stupid code. So, what went wrong here? It's like, as he said very, very nicely, line 37. What did I miss? Oh, that's good though. Like if it's different, I'm going to do this. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going through in the next iteration. Yeah? So I think that part it should be good. I think it's just afterwards, when we're out of the loop, we have to do something a bit nasty, which is have to say, okay, the last index is numbers.length -1. Then we have to check the previous number. If previous index is equals of last index, then this is enough. Otherwise, we need to print something a bit more complicated, which is something like this, last index, and it should be fine. If you don't trust me, you can try it. So you see, like this works, okay? And as you said, we want 3, right? So I'm gonna put 4 just to, make it extra clear that it works. Yeah? Are we happy with this? No? Some hands? Someone is just scratching themselves, doesn't count. Commit and push. Great. Any observations? Anything we want to say about this code? How does it look like? We just spent like not much time, right? 10 minutes of time to write code that looks like this. And I've tried, like ChatGPT pretty much creates, like if you, I don't know, I know the Italian expression, but if you kick it a little bit, it will produce code which looks pretty much like this. You have to convince him this is the right problem you're trying to solve and everything. But this is more or less the code that it produces. And eventually, it does come to a solution that exactly matches our specification, right? But I'm quite unhappy about how this code looks like. I feel, for example, now I've written it, we've written it together, I've already sort of forgotten like what are all the problems that we hit. And we hit many problems. Uh, 30. No, I don't understand, sorry. Do you want to come here and try to write it? Okay.
You see here, you do this one, but this iteration, you skip it, so you don't put in this branch.
See, yeah, okay.
So,
but this is just the first time.
Yes, but you can, as you see, you put previous index. So this one is not 99. This is 100.
Oh, I think it's just because I start from 0, the index. So it is, like, even though it says 99, it's actually row 100, just because the first row is like index 0.
So we are seeing correctly.
It's like, the code is right now. Now, like, the code is working as intended. I'm just saying that it looks a bit ugly, right? But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken, but like last time I checked, I think the code now behaves the way that we want, right? It's like good now, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, like we can really commit and push, and
if you
and the project manager won't probably notice that we made a little bit of a nasty one, but yeah, okay, but thank you. Okay, yeah, it's all good. So, okay, very good. Any ideas on why this code is not great? I have to make it a little bit smaller because it's too big. Anybody? Hand. Yeah. That is true, but like let's imagine we're sort of okay with this code and we just have to do a review of it and saying like what we think are the problems without changing the code, like just like by looking at it, right? Shouldn't mutate types is too ugly. Well, that's personal, so hand. One hand there. It's imperative. It's not easy to understand. Repeated logic, very good. Yep. Psychometric complexity is too high. Okay, all good. Yeah. A hand there, or are you just stretching? Okay. Okay, so I think this is like what I'm trying to say. It's like I feel like when we talk about functional programming, we think, oh, these nerds writing Haskell, right? And I think for me, it's like a little bit more, like a little bit different. Like in my idea, it's like when we say all these things, we say the code is hard to understand. There's like mutations, like hard to keep track. Like it's difficult to read. Where the problems that we're saying is because it just requires like so much mental energy. Imagine you just had a fritto misto, like this deep fried fish for lunch. I had, so yeah, forgive me. And you're trying to read this code. Of course you're going to struggle with it, right? Like there's like so much stuff that you have to keep in your brain to follow code like this. You're literally following how a computer is doing stuff, right? But I think as human beings, we can do something better, yeah? So let's try real quick to do this. If someone has any questions or like, observations, I'm happy to maybe take them later, if that's cool. We have plenty of time, so. So let me first of all do something very easy, which is to comment out all this code. And I'm just going to say, like, for me, like, what does it mean to write functional code is you're thinking about how you can transform your data in a way that makes your problem very easy to solve, right? And this sounds very abstract, so I'm just going to even make it more abstract and just write data transformation. And what I mean by that is that you have data in a certain shape, so you get from one shape, okay. From one shape, you transform it to another shape. And the only thing you're trying to do is to get this data to, that's now, like, it's like shaped like this, to a slightly different shape, which is better suited for solving the problem that you're trying to solve. And I think another problem that we're trying to solve is like inside the current logic, we have a lot of logic, so we're trying to figure out stuff, and in between, we're also trying to print, right? So that's why like functional programmers are always obsessing about side effects, right? Which is printing to screen, accessing a database, making an HTTP call. You're making this stuff on the outside world, which is imperfect and dangerous, while in the magical world of data transformation, you're safe, you're cared for, and you're loved. A bit of drink, sorry. Just to quickly remind ourselves of the structure of this file, yeah? Tails number 60. Tails, that's like a different game. So we have these numbers, right? And if we think about it, the original question was like, oh, how can we group consecutive numbers which are the same? So how about we try to do that without thinking about printing at all, right? We can just think about this data transformation. I have this list of numbers, like, 1, 1, 0, 8, 5. And I want to transform this data into another shape, another structure, which expresses this grouping, right? And I guess like I can just pretend that this is where the file starts, so I can just say this is the number, and the index is 0, the index is 1, the index is 2, the index is 3, the index is 4, okay? So we have this sort of like pair. We just paired the data that we care about with the index that eventually we will care about because we need to print it out. And we need to transform this shape into something else. And I think something reasonable is just to try to do something like this, right? We can create this pair. Don't worry, like this is not valid code. Maybe I should have put like, I don't know. Just pretend this is fine, yeah? It's like this magical programming language where this stuff works. Something like this, and something like this, right? I basically just literally did what I said I wanted to do. I grouped consecutive numbers which have the same value. Yeah, let's try to do this. We can do it in many ways. Just for fun, I'm going to reduce, just because you'll see later. But I'm going to create these groups. I'm going to say, okay, I have these numbers. I'm going to use each with index, which we used before. Now I'm going to use reduce, which is like this way to transform an enumerable into something else. So the first element, is the result, and then we get this little pair, right? Pair, yep, there we go. And then we can say that the number and the index is equals to the pair. This is like a way in Ruby where you can destructure an array with 2 elements. Okay. how do we group stuff using this reduce? We have to check the last group, right? And see if the number inside the last group is the same as the number we're looking at now. If it is, we need to add this pair to the last group. Otherwise, we have to create a new group. Yeah. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, I'm going to say last group is result.last. Then if last group exists, I'm going to do some stuff. And I guess I can also say if last group, I have to grab any element from the last group. I'm just going to grab the first. And I need to grab the number again, so first again. And if I say this thing is equals to number, so this means a last group exists, and the value in the last group is the same as my number, I can just grab the last group and add push the new pair. Yeah. If any of these things is not true, it means I need to start a new group. So I'm going to say, result push of pair. And I need to create a new array because it's going to be the new group. Yeah. If we look at this, like, yeah, it's not the most beautifulest code you'll ever write, but it's trying to do one thing, and it's, I think, fair, right? We're trying to create this group. Just due to the nature of reduce, you have to return the last element in the block. Otherwise, bad stuff will happen. So I will do this. If you don't like this, you can use, I also noticed I need to create the first value. If you don't like that thing, there's another method in the enumerable module, which is called each with object. You know, whatever, tomato, tomato. Now we've created these groups, yeah? So we've done this like operation in the safe world. We've transformed like this shape into a different shape, and now I'm ready to, you know, embark into the real world, where I have these groups. So I can just say for each one of these group, there's like these different cases, right? That the group can have multiple elements or just one. So I'm going to say if group length equals 1, I'm going to say, okay, I want the number and the index, and I'm going to say group first. And here I'm going to say put as the usual thing. Otherwise, if there's more than one element, I can do num equal first equal group first. I don't care about the numbers, I can just ignore it, but like last of the group last. And these are the two indices, right? And now if I grab this code, I can just do first. Last. Okay? Yeah, and I think Robocop is complaining or something. Assigned but unused variable. Okay, that's fine. There we go. Any observations? Does it work? You didn't expect this level of the interrogation after lunch, yeah? I could, like here, yeah? Just do this. Oh, I still need that index because I'm using it afterwards. So even though you're right, just to group, I don't need the index, but I will need the index later. Yeah. Okay, so let's try it. Ruby script. Okay. I'm still a bit unhappy about line 60. Like this thing looks like a bit weird. Like it's not great. Luckily, in the enumerable module in Ruby, there's a very nice function which is called slice when. You give it a collection, and you can tell it when he's supposed to like split it, right? So instead of doing this reduce, I'm going to say slice. Or is it split when, slice when? We'll see. If it crashes us, have to go and ask ChatGPT. Previous and current, and I'll just remove all the block inside here. I'm going to say prev first equals, no, not equal. Yeah, cur first. And if I run the code, okay, I guess another thing we can do is like we can remove this temporary variable since it's like not doing much. I can just remove it, and we can run the same code. Yeah. what do we think of this shape in the code? I can abstract the print. How? Okay, very good. So basically, here would be like creating a sort of like label, right? In this case, the label would just be index. And then in the other case, the label would be something like this. No, wait. And then we can just do something like this. Ooh. Yeah. And just to make sure that it works, okay, perfect. Okay, so I think let's look a little bit again. Like this is the code how it used to look like, right? I feel like that's my problem. It's like there's so much stuff that I have to keep in my brain when I'm reading this code. Just remind myself, like, what is it that this code was trying to do? Right? Like that, like awful feeling you get, and look at this like 15 lines of code, and you're like, what the hell, right? And I feel that when I look at this code, even though there are no comments, I can pretty much tell, oh, there is some sort of data transformation here in these 3 lines, and then there's some logic that prints stuff, like and render stuff, right? And if you want to, you can give these functions like a better name and everything. But I think even here, to me, like this is just like so much easier to do, and I will prove it with a point, right? My point is, what if the requirements of the software change, and not just we want to group numbers which are the same, but we also want to group numbers if the distance between them is 1, right? So like if I have 0, 0, 1, I want to group those 3 together, yeah? And the task is to do it when you receive the first function, okay? Like it's like we're programmers, like we've been doing this like for many, many years. Like how come it's still so difficult? It's just because at the end of the day, we have 5 fingers in each hand. So like we read 5 stuff, we're like, oh my God, it's like way too much, yeah? And instead, if I had to do this with the second code, okay, the requirement has changed. Basically here it means I need to do pref first minus cur dot first. I need to take the absolute difference of this. And if this is greater than 1, I need to split. Yeah? And this is just the whole change that you need to do to the code. Yeah, it's a random thing. Like it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I do agree with that. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is like, I think everybody eventually ends up writing some code that looks like the first version, right? Because you're trying to solve a very specific problem, and you don't have time to think about, oh, I want to write clean code, whatever. I'm trying to, do stuff, right? Or I'm getting ChatGPT to write some code for me. It emits some code like this. Okay, looks good. But I feel like it's a really good exercise when you're getting any code in any way to try to read it again and say, oh my God, imagine I'm the new person and I have to read this code and comprehend it. And maybe some tests broke, right? Like the test suite broke and you need to read the actual source that caused the problem and fix it. ChatGPT maybe will be able to do some work, but how can you trust it if you don't really understand the code yourself? I feel like that's like one problem which is still belongs to us, right? Even though the code works, it does the thing which it's supposed to do, I think it's still not good enough, yeah? And I think this is like a good, clear example of why thinking about data transformation is like so useful. Like, and this is, I think, a very simple example, but you will hear functional programmers be very obsessed with data structures, right? They will always have a new type of data structure, which is very good at solving a specific problem, and it's because the data structure has some guarantees which remove so much work for you, right? Just by the fact that we grouped stuff properly, it meant that we didn't have to worry about indices, -1, making sure of handling edge cases. Like this grouping operation has solved the issues for us. And you've noticed also something else, is that we first wrote some really ugly code to do the grouping. But since this grouping operation happens in the safe and mystical world of pure data transformation, someone else has had the same problem before, and they came up with a really good abstraction for this problem, right? Of course, they won't have abstracted the task of printing as many hashes as the number. That's something which is still on us. But the first operation, they will, like, it's so common to see someone that has solved this, like, in a very nice way, in a better way. Okay, I have 5 minutes left. I was trying to get ChatGPT to do stuff, but it couldn't work. I was like, this is like my thing. I was like trying to tell him, look, but you have to group these things together. I'm not sure if you can see it. It tried to create something. It's almost there, but it's like messing up, and I couldn't really understand what the program was trying to do. So it's difficult. You're free to try this yourself. I don't know. Actually, before I switch to ChatGPT, any questions about this? Any observations at all? Okay, yeah, which ones? Mm-hmm.
Right? You could move the 64
Oh, this one?
and, yeah, 64 and 67 are the same one, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, like I think the only difference is now I gave it like first, which I think reads a little bit better, because otherwise here it will be index.
Yeah, and the first part of the label, the index one, is also the same. You can move initially, you can create the label initially with just the index, and just if the group length is more than one, just
Right,
add
but
the
if
dash
you
last.
had, sorry, I can't see who's talking. There, okay.
Hey.
Yeah, hey. But I'm saying is like that is true. I agree. But if I think someone who's reading this code the first time, does it really matter if like, there's some duplication, or is it like easier to understand if they're called first and last instead of index plus equal another string?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
This, I'm saying, like I'm very happy about like removing lines, but I'm just like trying to put myself in the perspective of someone that's reading this function for the first time. I feel like there is some value, even though you're right, the behavior is exactly the same. But giving this the name first, I think has a little bit of an advantage because it gives me the idea that this group has multiple elements. There's a first element, there's a last element, and in the first group there's only one, so we just call it index. But yeah, I do see that. I feel like this is also like what I'm trying to always think about. It's like, how can I make this readable? Even if there's a little bit of duplication, I don't mind, as long as it's not some really like difficult code, right? Like there's maybe this big algorithm, I don't want to duplicate that. But if it's like something rather small, like calling group first, sometimes I'm okay with duplication. I don't think it's a cardinal sin. I feel like, yeah, I'm trying to think, what is the way where, imagine a new person that's just joined the team, they just git pulled the repo, there's a bug in this function. What can I do to make their life as easy as I can, right? Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah.
You can do a couple of things. First is you should have started with a test.
Yeah.
Second is
Tests?
since I sort of expected to see some lambdas, expected to see some part that would describe pieces of code, because there's a lot going on, and just looking at this, it's hard to understand what part of an array are you taking, and maybe just naming a couple of things like, okay, first we're creating a data set. We're creating a data set that consists of the indexing number and the hashes. We would pick a good name for that and write a function for that. Then you would probably split out a function that just prints it out.
Right.
And you would call these two functions, and that's it.
Yeah, like that's perfectly fair. I think, maybe I mentioned this, but like I think definitely like we could like in a production system we can definitely separate these two operations. One which is the data transformation, and the other which I think is more like the rendering part, or like the side effectful part. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, so if there's nothing else, we can move to more ChatGPT stuff. We don't have much time actually. So no ChatGPT for you, I'm afraid. Maybe just like something very little. I was trying. Oh no, okay. I really don't have any time. In 1 minute, I'm sure I can do something cool, which is how much time do I have? 1 minute top? No, 5 minutes. That's great. So we can do summarize the text delimited by triple backticks and emit the following. I'm not sure if everybody has played with ChatGPT. If you haven't, you must. There's a really great OpenAI, deep learning AI course about it, which is like called prompt engineering. I think everybody who writes software in any sort of fashion, they should try and do it. And just because you get to do stuff like this, summarize the text delimited and emit the following JSON. I want something like a summary of text. Then I want Italian, translation in Italian of, maybe I should just write of text in Italian. Then I'm going to say Venetian. I don't know it's like Venetian, but like translation of text using dialect from Veneto, region of Italy. Korean, translation of text in Korean. Key characters, yeah? Key characters in text. And then num characters. Number of key characters, yeah? So like just this to prove, like, this is something, right now it's just in my brain, yeah? And how about we get like some code that does this? I'm going to create these triple backticks, which I mentioned to the prompt that I was going to give in the text there. We're going to open the summary of a movie called Pulp Fiction. And we're going to, just ask ChatGPT. And you see, it ran out of characters. It ran out of characters, and actually I have to press continue generating to make it keep going. But you will see, like, it's like the really powerful thing. You ask him to do all these things, to take that excerpt, like that piece of text, summarize it, translate it in all sorts of languages, and then you ask him to extract, which are the key characters inside the text, count them, emit the JSON. He will just do it, yeah? And this is like in the texts, like in the papers, usually they call these few-shot approach, where rather than asking ChatGPT to do something, you just show him, this is what I want, do it, yeah? And you should just provide a template, it will do the thing. Sorry, yeah, any questions? Thank you very much. Yep. Makes sense. Thank you, ChatGPT. Yeah. See, it's really good for like conference talks. But like this is what you can do from the web UI. But if you register for an OpenAI API key, you can literally write 10 lines of Python and do the same thing. You will say, okay, you are an assistant. You need to be helpful. Get this prompt and do stuff. And you can just play with it. And you can imagine, once you create a prompt that generates the JSON, you can have another program parses the JSON, does stuff, right? It's very easy for programmers to interact with an output like this. So yeah, do it. The end.